The water was so cold it burned my lungs. I couldn't swim. Everyone knew that. Victoria knew that better than anyone. "Help! Someone help her!" My stepsister's voice echoed across the pool deck, perfectly practiced panic dripping from every word. "It was an accident! She slipped!" But I had felt her hands on my back. The deliberate shove. The satisfied smirk she thought no one else could see. My name is Camilla Rodriguez, and I died on my 22nd birthday. 3 hours earlier. "Happy birthday, sweetheart!" Dad wrapped me in one of his bear hugs, the kind that made everything feel safe for just a moment. 22 years old. I can't believe my little girl is all grown up. "Thanks, Dad." I squeezed him back, breathing in his familiar cologne mixed with sawdust from his construction company. Victoria descended the marble staircase like she was walking a red carpet, her designer dress floating around her perfectly toned legs. At 24, she had inherited our stepmother, Elena's striking features and ruthless ambition. "Happy birthday, sister," she said, the word dripping with false sweetness. Elena appeared behind her, air kissing my cheeks without actually touching them. "Camilla, darling, you look..." She paused, scanning my simple sundress. Comfortable. The contrast was always there, unspoken but obvious. Victoria with her trust fund, designer everything, and effortless beauty. Me with my community college degree, retail job, and the constant reminder that I didn't quite belong in this world Dad had built after Mum died. "The party planners finished setting up the backyard," Victoria announced. "It looks absolutely divine, very appropriate." I knew that tone. It meant she'd taken over my birthday party planning again, turning it into another showcase for her social media presence. Last year, she'd invited 50 of her influencer friends and exactly 3 of mine. "Victoria, I asked you to keep it small." "Oh, but birthdays are meant to be celebrated." She clapped her hands together. "Besides, Daddy's been working so hard. He deserves to show off his beautiful family." Elena nodded approvingly. "Victoria has such a gift for entertaining. You should be grateful, Camilla." Grateful. Always grateful. For the step-family who'd moved into our house and made it theirs. For the half-sister who treated me like an inconvenient stain on her perfect life. For being allowed to exist in the shadow of their golden world. "Of course," I managed. "Thank you." The backyard looked like a magazine spread. Fairy lights twisted through the oak trees, designer furniture clustered around the infinity pool, and a 3-tier cake dominated the dessert table. Vanilla with raspberry filling, Victoria's favourite, not mine. Guests mingled with champagne glasses, most of them Victoria's crowd. Beautiful people with perfect teeth and empty conversations, all documenting every moment for their social media feeds. "Camilla!" My best friend Jessica appeared at my elbow, looking overwhelmed. "This is insane. I feel like I need a permission slip just to touch anything." "Welcome to Victoria's world," I muttered, watching my stepsister pose for photos by the pool, her laugh tinkling like expensive crystal. "Your dad seems happy, though," Jessica observed. She was right. Dad moved through the crowd with Eleanor on his arm, his face glowing with pride. He'd worked his entire life to build something worthy of this kind of elegance. After Mom died when I was 12, he'd thrown himself into growing his construction business, desperate to give me everything she couldn't. Meeting Eleanor had been his reward, a sophisticated woman who brought culture and refinement into our simple lives. Victoria had been the bonus daughter, the one who fit naturally into the world he wanted to provide. "He deserves this," I said quietly. "And you deserve better than being a side character at your own party." Before I could respond, Victoria's voice cut through the chatter. "Everyone, attention please. It's time for Camilla's birthday surprise." A surprise? My stomach twisted. Victoria's surprises were never good for anyone but Victoria. She stood by the pool's edge, radiant under the string lights, phone cameras automatically turning her way. "My dear sister Camilla has been working so hard lately. Between her little job and night classes, she barely has time to relax. So I thought, what better gift than a refreshing swim? Victoria, I started to back away, but the crowd had formed a circle, trapping me near the pool. Oh, don't be shy! Her eyes glittered with something that definitely wasn't sisterly affection. Everyone knows how much you love the water. That was a lie. Everyone who actually knew me knew I'd never learned to swim. Mum had been terrified of water after nearly drowning as a child, and she'd passed that fear to me. After she died, Dad had been too busy rebuilding our lives to worry about swimming lessons. Victoria knew this. Victoria had been there 2 summers ago when I'd panicked in the shallow end of this very pool, Dad jumping in fully clothed to pull me out while she watched from her floating unicorn. I really don't want to swim tonight, I said firmly, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. Nonsense! Eleanor appeared beside Victoria. Swimming is excellent exercise. You should try new things, Camilla. The crowd began to chant, swim, swim, swim. Victoria moved closer, her smile sharp as broken glass. Come on, birthday girl. Don't disappoint your guests. She was close enough now that only I could hear her next words. Unless you want Daddy to know about your little secret with his business partner. My blood turned to ice. She knew about the loan. 3 months ago, when Dad's company hit a rough patch, I had quietly borrowed money from his partner to help make payroll. Not stealing. Borrowing. I'd been paying it back slowly from my retail wages, planning to tell Dad once I'd handled it completely. But Victoria had found out somehow, and now she had leverage. That's what I thought, she whispered, then raised her voice for the crowd. She's just being modest. Sometimes sisters need a little encouragement. Her hands pressed against my back. For a split second, I thought she was just guiding me toward the pool edge for show. Then she pushed. The world tilted. Gravity took hold. The last thing I saw before hitting the water was Victoria's face. Not shocked, not apologetic, but satisfied. The pool swallowed me whole. Cold water rushed into my lungs as I thrashed, panic consuming every rational thought. My sundress tangled around my legs. The lights above wavered and blurred through the chlorinated water. I tried to scream, but only bubbles escaped. My arms flailed uselessly as I sank toward the bottom, the weight of my waterlogged clothes dragging me down. Through the distorted surface, I could see shapes moving, hear muffled voices. Victoria's perfectly modulated panic. Oh my God, it was an accident. She slipped. Someone help her. Dad's voice raw with terror. Camilla, get her out now. But it was too late. Darkness crept in from the edges of my vision as my lungs filled with pool water instead of air. My last coherent thought was bitter and clear. She planned this. Then everything went black and Camilla Rodriguez died on her 22nd birthday while her stepsister played the devastated witness to a tragic accident. But death, I discovered, was not the end of my story. It was just the beginning. Beep, 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 my alarm clock, but why did it sound so far away? I opened my eyes to sunlight streaming through familiar pink curtains. My childhood bedroom, the unicorn lamp on my nightstand, the collection of worn paperbacks, the mirror with photos tucked into the frame, all exactly as they'd been years ago. But that was impossible. Dad had converted this room into Eleanor's home office after I moved to the guest room downstairs. I sat up, my heart hammering. In the mirror's reflection, I saw not the woman who drowned last night, but myself at 17. Shorter hair, rounder cheeks, the small scar above my left eyebrow from falling off my bike, gone. The digital clock read 7:30 a.m., June 15th. 5 years ago. The day before my 17th birthday. The day before everything changed. Camilla, breakfast! Dad's voice carried up the stairs, younger and more carefree than I'd heard it in years. I stumbled to the bathroom, staring at my teenage reflection. Same brown eyes, but without the exhaustion that had settled there after years of working retail while taking night classes. My hands were soft, unmarked by the small burns from the restaurant job I'd worked last summer. This wasn't possible. People didn't just wake up 5 years in the past, but the evidence surrounded me, every detail perfect, down to the small chip in the bathroom mirror and the way my old shampoo bottles were arranged. I'd been given a second chance. Downstairs, Dad stood at the stove making pancakes, his hair still dark without the grey threads that would appear after years of stress. He looked up when I entered, his face lighting up. "There's my birthday girl. Well, almost birthday girl. One more day." For a moment, I just stared at him. In my last life, I'd taken these moments for granted. His easy smile, the way he hummed while cooking, the absence of the worry lines that would etch themselves around his eyes. "Are you okay, sweetheart? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I am a ghost," I thought. "The ghost of your daughter's future." I'm fine, Dad. Just tired." He flipped a pancake with practiced ease. "Well, you'll have plenty of energy after breakfast. Eleanor called yesterday. She and Victoria are driving down from the city today to help plan your party." My blood chilled. In 3 hours, Eleanor's black Mercedes would pull into our driveway. Victoria would step out wearing a yellow sundress and fake enthusiasm, beginning her campaign to systematically destroy my life. But this time, I knew her playbook. "Dad, maybe we could do something smaller this year, just family." He looked disappointed. "But Eleanor's so excited to plan something special, and Victoria's been looking forward to seeing you." Right. Victoria had been so looking forward to it, to sizing up her new rival, cataloguing my weaknesses, figuring out how to turn Dad against me while maintaining her perfect stepdaughter image. "Of course," I said. "I can't wait." I spent the morning in my room, mapping out everything I remembered. Victoria would arrive with gifts and compliments, winning over Dad immediately. She'd suggest redecorating my room, claiming it looked young for someone about to turn 17. Elena would support her, and within a week, I'd be moved to the smaller guest room. The changes would be subtle at first. My favourite meals would stop appearing at dinner, replaced by Eleanor's preferences. Family photos would disappear from the mantel, replaced by professional shots that somehow never included me. Victoria would accidentally break my things, apologise profusely, then replace them with items that reflected her taste, not mine. When I started dating Jake Morrison, my senior year, Victoria would flirt with him at every family gathering until he dumped me for her. When I got into state university, Elena would convince Dad that community college was more practical for someone with my grades, while Victoria headed to an expensive private school. Every setback in my life had Victoria's fingerprints on it, disguised as accidents or well-meaning advice. But now, I had something she'd never counted on, foreknowledge. The doorbell rang at exactly 11:30 a.m., just as I remembered. "They're here!" Dad called out, his excitement genuine. I took a deep breath and headed downstairs, my teenage body moving with the confidence of someone who'd lived through this before. Eleanor stood in our foyer like she owned it, surveying our middle-class home with the practiced eye of someone calculating renovations. She was beautiful in a cold, sharp way, all angles and expensive perfection. "Camilla, darling." She air-kissed my cheek, her signature move. "You look so young." "I am young," I replied evenly. "I'm 16. Victoria appeared behind her, and I had to suppress a gasp. I'd forgotten how stunning she was at 19, all golden hair and innocent eyes, with just enough vulnerability to make men want to protect her. She had perfected that look to devastating effect. "Camilla, oh my goodness, you're so pretty." She rushed forward with apparent enthusiasm, wrapping me in a hug that felt like being embraced by a snake. "I've missed you so much." We'd met exactly once before, at Dad and Eleanor's wedding 2 months ago, but Victoria had always been good at rewriting history. I brought you something. She produced a small wrapped box. Just a little early birthday present. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet, exactly the kind of understated piece that would make my own jewellery look cheap by comparison. Classic Victoria, generous enough to seem thoughtful, strategic enough to highlight what I lacked. It's beautiful, I said, because that's what she expected. I thought you could wear it tomorrow for your party. Her eyes sparkled with fake excitement. I have so many ideas. We could do a pool party theme. Actually, I interrupted, I can't swim. I am terrified of water. Victoria's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second. In my first life, she'd discovered this weakness months later, filing it away for future use. Now I'd handed it to her immediately, but with a crucial difference. This time I knew what she'd do with it. Oh, she said, recovering quickly. Well, that's okay. We'll think of something else. Elena was already making herself at home, rearranging Dad's books on the coffee table. This place has such potential, she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. With a few changes, it could be really charming. Dad beamed. Whatever you think would look nice. You have such good taste. I watched him fall under their spell again, saw the exact moment his shoulders straightened and his voice took on a more refined tone. In my first life, I'd thought he was just trying to impress his new wife. Now I understood he was changing himself to become worthy of their world. Camilla, why don't you show Victoria your room? Eleanor suggested. I'd love to get her thoughts on the decor. This was it. The first move in Victoria's long game. In an hour, she'd convinced Dad that my room needed updating for a girl my age. By next week, she'd have transformed it into something that reflected her aesthetic, not mine, making me a stranger in my own home. Sure, I said pleasantly. Come on up, Victoria. I'd love to get your opinion. As we climbed the stairs, Victoria's mask slipped slightly. Her eyes took in every detail of our modest home with calculating precision. The family photos, the worn furniture Dad couldn't afford to replace, the small spaces she would soon claim as her own. But this time, I was calculating too, because I knew something Victoria had never learned. The person who strikes first doesn't always win. Sometimes, the person who strikes last wins everything, and I had 5 years of knowledge to plan the perfect counterattack. Victoria stepped into my room with the practiced grace of a predator surveying territory. Her fingers trailed across my bookshelf, pausing at my collection of fantasy novels. These are so imaginative, she said, the word carrying just enough condescension to sting. I suppose everyone needs an escape from reality. In my first life, that comment had made me defensive. Now, I simply smiled. Imagination is powerful. It helps you see possibilities others miss. She moved to my dresser, picking up a framed photo of Mom and me at the beach. She was beautiful. It must be hard, not having a mother figure around. The manipulation was textbook Victoria. Plant the seed that Elena could fill that role, make me grateful for her presence. But I'd learned to read between her lines. Actually, I have wonderful memories with Mom. Dad's made sure I never felt like anything was missing. I took the photo from her hands, holding it protectively. He's amazing at being both parents. Victoria's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. She needed me to feel incomplete, desperate for female guidance. My contentment disrupted her script. Of course, she said smoothly, though there are some things only another woman can teach you. Fashion, makeup, how to attract the right kind of attention. Like from boys. Well, eventually you'll want a boyfriend, and when you do, you'll want to know how to keep him interested. I nearly laughed. Victoria would steal Jake from me in exactly 14 months using those same lessons. But this time, I wouldn't be playing her game. Actually, I'm not really interested in dating yet. I'm focused on my studies. I sat on my bed watching her process this unexpected response. I want to get into a great college, maybe study business like Dad. Victoria's eyes sharpened. In her world, women were accessories to powerful men, not competitors. The idea of me having professional ambitions clearly unsettled her. That's ambitious, she said carefully, though college is so expensive and competitive. Maybe you should have backup plans. There it was, the first attempt to lower my expectations. In my original timeline, comments like these would accumulate over months, gradually convincing me to aim lower until community college seemed like the smart choice. Dad's already started a college fund, I lied smoothly. He believes in investing in education. I watched her recalculate. Victoria's power came from being the golden child, who reflected well on the family. If I became an academic success, it would shift the dynamic she needed to maintain. "Girls, come down here," Eleanor's voice carried up the stairs. "I want to discuss party plans." The living room had been subtly rearranged in the 20 minutes we'd been upstairs. Eleanor had moved the family photos to a side table and placed a designer magazine prominently on the coffee table. Small changes that signalled ownership. Dad sat beside Eleanor on the couch, his posture straighter than usual. He was already adapting to her presence, trying to match her sophistication. "I've been thinking about themes," Elena announced. "Something elegant, but age-appropriate. Victoria had the most wonderful suite, 16 last year. A garden party with live music and professional photography." Victoria beamed at the memory. "It was in Town and Country magazine. The photographer said I was a natural." "How lovely," I said. But I was hoping for something simpler. Maybe just close friends and family? Eleanor looked genuinely confused. "But, darling, this is your chance to make an impression. The right connections made at the right age can shape your entire future." "What kind of connections?" "Well, there are some lovely families in our social circle. The Williamses have a son your age who's quite accomplished, captain of his tennis team, headed to Princeton. And the Ashford's daughter is starting at the same prep school Victoria attended." I felt the trap closing. Elena wasn't just planning a party, she was planning my social integration into their world, a world where I'd always be the charity case, grateful for inclusion. "That sounds wonderful," I said, then added casually, "but I should mention I've been accepted into the Academic Honour Society at school. My counsellor thinks I could qualify for full scholarships to top universities." The room went silent. This was information they hadn't possessed in my first life, mainly because I'd been too modest to mention it until after graduation. Dad's face lit up with pride. "Sweetheart, that's incredible! Why didn't you tell me?" I wanted to wait until it was official, but Mrs. Patterson called yesterday to confirm. Victoria's smile had frozen in place. Elena's expression cycled through surprise, calculation, and something that might have been respect. "Well," Eleanor said slowly, "that certainly changes things. Academic achievement should definitely be celebrated." But I could see the wheels turning. If I was academically gifted, I posed a different kind of threat, not just to Victoria's position as the accomplished daughter, but to the entire family dynamic Elena had planned. "Maybe we should invite some of your teachers," Victoria suggested sweetly. "And your academic teammates?" She was already adapting, trying to turn my strength into a weakness by making it the focus of my social identity. In high school, being known as the brain could be social suicide. "Actually, I don't want to make a big deal about school at my birthday party. I'd rather just celebrate with people I care about." Dad squeezed my hand. "Whatever makes you happy, sweetheart." Elena stood abruptly. "Well, I should call the caterer. Victoria, why don't you help me in the kitchen? We can discuss details." As they left, I caught the look that passed between them. Strategy session. They needed to recalibrate their approach based on this new information. Dad turned to me, his eyes shining. "I'm so proud of you, Camilla. Your mother would be thrilled." "Thanks, Dad." I hesitated, then decided to plant a seed of my own. You know, I've been thinking about Mum a lot lately, about the advice she used to give me. What kind of advice? She always said to watch people's actions, not their words, that people show you who they really are if you pay attention. Dad nodded thoughtfully. Your mother was very perceptive about people. She was. I'm trying to be more like her in that way. From the kitchen came the sound of Eleanor's voice, lower now, discussing something with Victoria that they clearly didn't want us to hear. Dad noticed too. They're probably planning some wonderful surprise for tomorrow. Probably, I agreed. But I knew better. They were planning how to handle me, this new version of myself that didn't fit their expectations. Victoria had built her strategy around having a naive, insecure stepsister she could manipulate. Elena had counted on a grateful stepdaughter who would defer to her wisdom and connections. Instead, they were facing someone who remembered every move in their playbook. Over the next hour, Eleanor and Victoria launched a series of subtle tests. Victoria mentioned her expensive private school, waiting for me to express envy. Eleanor discussed the importance of family unity, watching for signs that I might resist their integration efforts. They dropped hints about proper behaviour and appropriate ambitions, gauging my receptivity to their guidance. I navigated each test carefully, giving them enough resistance to seem authentic while avoiding any behaviour that would alarm Dad. The key was making them underestimate me while positioning myself as someone worth taking seriously. As they prepared to leave, Victoria pulled me aside. I'm really excited about getting to know you better, she said, her hand on my arm, in a gesture that looked sisterly but felt possessive. I think we're going to be such good friends. I hope so, I replied. I've never had a sister before. Well, now you do, and sisters look out for each other. Her grip tightened slightly. They share secrets, give advice, help each other make good choices. The threat was delicate, but unmistakable. Victoria was establishing the terms of our relationship. She would be the guide. I would be the follower. Any deviation from that script would have consequences. That sounds perfect, I said with a smile that matched hers in its insincerity. As their car pulled away, Dad wrapped his arm around my shoulders. What do you think of your new family? I watched the Mercedes disappear around the corner, carrying two women who believed they'd successfully laid the groundwork for my subjugation. I think, I said carefully, this is going to be very interesting. Tomorrow was my 17th birthday. In my first life, it had marked the beginning of Victoria's campaign to destroy me. This time, it would mark the beginning of mine to destroy her. My 17th birthday dawned with perfect summer weather, the same cloudless sky that had witnessed my death 5 years in the future. By noon, our backyard buzzed with activity as Elena's hired staff transformed it into an elegant garden party. Victoria arrived early, ostensibly to help, but really to oversee her domain. She wore a flowing white dress that made her look angelic, every inch the devoted stepsister. "Happy birthday, darling!" She kissed both my cheeks, her perfume overwhelming. "Are you excited?" "Absolutely thrilled," I replied, watching her eyes scan the setup. Everything was positioned exactly as I remembered. The dessert table by the pool, the photographer's equipment, the strategically placed furniture that would channel guests toward the water. "I have a special surprise planned for later," Victoria murmured, her voice honey-sweet with malice. "Something unforgettable." I knew exactly what surprise she meant. The same one that had killed me in another timeline. Guests began arriving at 3, mostly Elena's connections and Victoria's prep school friends, with a handful of my classmates looking overwhelmed by their elegance. Jessica appeared at my side, her eyes wide. "This is insane, Cam. I feel like I need a trust fund just to breathe here." "Just enjoy it," I said, but my attention was fixed on Victoria. She moved through the crowd like a queen holding court, her laughter bright and infectious. To everyone else, she was the perfect hostess. Only I could see the calculation behind every gesture. Dad found me by the gift table, his face glowing with pride. Your sister really outdid herself. This is incredible. She's very talented, I agreed, watching Victoria pose for photos by the pool, the same pool where she would try to drown me in exactly 3 hours. I'm so glad you girls are getting along. Having a real family again. It's everything I hoped for. The genuine happiness in his voice made my chest tight. Dad deserved this joy, even if it was built on lies. But soon he'd have to choose between the truth and the fantasy Elena had sold him. Dad, can I ask you something? Of course, sweetheart. Do you remember what Mum used to say about people who seem too good to be true? He paused, his expression growing thoughtful. She said they usually are. Why? No reason. I just think about her advice sometimes. Elena materialized beside us, interrupting the moment. Camilla, darling, Victoria wants to show you something special. She's been planning it all week. This was it. The setup. I followed Victoria to the pool area, where she'd arranged a small crowd of witnesses. The photographer positioned himself for the perfect angle, everything orchestrated with deadly precision. Now that everyone's here, Victoria announced, her voice carrying across the yard, I have a very special birthday surprise for my dear sister. She gestured toward the pool, where floating candles had been arranged in the shape of a heart. I thought we could do something symbolic. In many cultures, water represents rebirth and new beginnings. Since Camilla is starting a new chapter of her life, I thought she might like to make a wish and take a refreshing dip. The crowd murmured appreciation. It sounded so thoughtful, so sisterly. No one could see the trap. Victoria, that's beautiful, but I told you I can't swim. Oh, don't be silly. She waved dismissively. The pool isn't that deep, and everyone's here to help if you need it. But I knew better. In my original timeline, by the time anyone realized I was actually drowning, it had been too late. Victoria had counted on the few seconds of confusion to seal my fate. I really don't think... Come on, birthday girl, Eleanor joined in, her voice encouraging but firm. Sometimes we have to face our fears to grow. The crowd began to chant softly, Camilla, Camilla. Victoria stepped closer, her eyes glittering with anticipated triumph. Don't disappoint everyone, sister. They're all here to celebrate you. This was the moment. The exact same pressure, the same manipulation, the same deadly intention. Except this time, I was ready. You're right, I said suddenly, my voice carrying across the yard. This is about new beginnings. I walked to the pool's edge, feeling Victoria's satisfaction radiating behind me. She thought she'd won. Thought she was about to eliminate her competition once and for all. Instead, I turned around. Before I make my wish, I want to say something. My voice was clear and strong, carrying to every corner of the yard. Victoria has been such an amazing sister to me, so supportive, so caring. Victoria beamed, basking in the praise. In fact, I continued, she's been so insistent that I get in this pool, almost like she knows something I don't. The first flicker of uncertainty crossed Victoria's face. Like, maybe she knows I can't swim. Maybe she even remembers the time 2 summers ago when I nearly drowned in this very pool, and Dad had to jump in fully clothed to save me. The crowd's murmur shifted, becoming confused. Some of Eleanor's friends exchanged glances. But Victoria wouldn't put me in danger, would you, sister? You'd never deliberately push me towards something that could hurt me, right? Of course not, Victoria said quickly, but her voice had lost its warmth. I just thought... You thought what? That peer pressure would force me into water where I might drown? On my birthday? In front of all these witnesses? The silence was deafening. I could see understanding dawn on several faces, including Dad's. Eleanor looked horrified, not at Victoria's actions, but at being exposed. "That's ridiculous," Victoria said, but her voice shook slightly. "I would never." "Then you won't mind demonstrating how safe it is?" I smiled sweetly. "Since you're such a strong swimmer, why don't you show everyone how easy it would be to get out if someone accidentally fell in?" Victoria stared at me, trapped. If she refused, she'd look guilty. If she agreed, she'd have to admit the pool was dangerous. "I'm wearing a white dress," she said weakly. "So am I." I gestured to my sundress. "But you said it wasn't deep. You said everyone would help. Surely you're not afraid." The photographer, sensing drama, kept snapping pictures. Social media, influencers in the crowd were already live streaming. Victoria's perfect image was cracking in real time. "This is silly," Eleanor intervened. "No one needs to get in the pool." "But Victoria was so insistent," I pressed. "She seemed to think it was important for my growth, my rebirth. Surely what's good for the birthday girl is good for the caring sister." Dad stepped forward, his face grave. "Victoria, what exactly were you planning?" I just thought..." Victoria's composure finally shattered. "She's being dramatic. I wasn't going to push her." The words hung in the air like a confession. No one had mentioned pushing. "But you were thinking about it," I said quietly. "Weren't you?" Victoria's face went white. Around us, phones captured every moment of her breakdown. The perfect stepsister, the golden daughter, reduced to stammering denials that only made her look more guilty. Dad's expression shifted from confusion to horror as the pieces clicked together. "Victoria, were you planning to hurt Camilla?" "No, I would never." "Then prove it." I gestured toward the pool. "Take that swim you were so eager for me to have." Victoria looked around desperately, seeking escape, but found only staring faces and recording phones. Her carefully constructed image was dissolving in real time. "I don't have to prove anything to you," she said finally, her mask slipping completely. "You're nobody. You'll always be nobody." The crowd gasped. Eleanor closed her eyes in defeat. Dad stepped between us, his voice deadly quiet. "Get out of my house." "Daddy, you don't understand." "Get out, both of you, now." As security escorted a sobbing Victoria and a stone-faced Eleanor away, Dad turned to me with tears in his eyes. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I should have seen it." "You couldn't have known," I said gently, "but now you do." Later that evening, after the guests had gone and the staff had cleaned up, Dad and I sat by the pool. The floating candles had burned out, leaving only darkness and reflection. "How did you know?" he asked quietly. I thought about telling him the truth, about drowning, about coming back, about living through Victoria's calculated cruelty. Instead, I said, "Mum taught me to watch people's actions, not their words. Victoria's actions never matched her words." Dad nodded slowly. "Your mother always was the smart one." The next morning, social media exploded with videos of Victoria's meltdown. Her influencer career evaporated overnight. Elena's reputation in high society crumbled as the story spread. Within a week, they'd left town entirely, chasing a fresh start somewhere else. Dad and I rebuilt our simple, happy life. I got into Stanford on a full academic scholarship, studying business like I'd always planned. Jessica and I remained best friends. I eventually met someone wonderful, not Jake Morrison, who turned out to be as shallow as Victoria deserved. Sometimes, late at night, I still dream about drowning. But when I wake up, I'm alive. I won, and Victoria learned the hardest lesson of all. When you try to destroy someone who has nothing left to lose, you better make sure they stay down. Because if they get back up, they'll come for everything you hold dear. And they'll win.